Hello everyone, Sandy here. Today we are doing a VR, a video response to Logan over at Logan Legend and their hashtag Tarot Firsts. Now, I've wanted to do a reply to Logan forever because they're putting out some really excellent tags at the moment, and I thought that it would be appropriate that the first reply I do is the one about my tarot firsts. So here we go. The first one is my first encounter with tarot. Well, I do not remember when my first encounter with tarot was. I can't remember when I learned what tarot was. I most probably came across it through, television. Probably through one of these 90s witchy TV shows like Charmed or Sabrina or, something like that. I don't know. But my first tarot deck was the Londa Tarot, and this deck was bought for me by my lovely grandmother. We were visiting them up in the mountains in Sweden, in the northern Sweden, and there was this little shamanic shop that I loved to go into because it was just full of knickknacks, magical things like incense and candles and tarot decks and all the goodies you can imagine. And I forced my grandmother in there, and I spent ages just looking around. And being a grandmother, she wanted to buy me something from there, and I chose a tarot deck. My little pre-teenage or pre-teen witchy heart absolutely adored this particular art style. I don't really read with it anymore. I read with it for a few years. It was my only tarot deck. Can't say that I ever really started understanding tarot through this one. It was something that I just played around with, and I had a lot of fun with my friends. So it's a nostalgic deck in that regard, but it's not the kind of deck I would go for nowadays at all. Either way, that was the Londa Tarot, and it was my very first deck and my first mass market deck. It was mass market back then, now it's out of print though. My first indie deck was actually not a tarot. It was is the Earthbound Oracle. And the reason why I'm showing you this one instead of my first tarot deck is because I don't have my very first indie tarot anymore. I've traded it away, and that was the Mesquite Tarot, which is a lovely little deck. I loved the guidebook for it. But since I never read with it, even though now I regret getting rid of it because it's very difficult to get a hold of, because it's an indie deck and it's out of print, and it goes for insane amounts if you want to buy it. But I traded it for the Llewellyn out of print edition of the Gaian Tarot. So yeah, but back to the Earthbound Oracle. I love this deck. I love this deck so much. It is gorgeous, and it does so many things. It's so versatile, and this is the deck that taught me how to look at cards from a more of an intuitive perspective, to really just look at the card and see what I feel or think like what comes through intuitively. And this is the deck that did that for me, and I adore this deck. I adore its little size. I love the backs, the artwork, that it's painted on wood. I love it. I love everything about it, and it's definitely one of my all-time faves, still to this day in my collection. But yes, so this and the Mesquite Tarot was my very first indie additions to my collection that I bought. And I both from Little Red Tarot while they still shipped outside of the UK before the whole Brexit debacle. So yeah, but the Mesquite Tarot I sadly don't have anymore, even though it was very pretty, and now I wish I hadn't. Anyway, my first Kickstarter tarot. Well, there will be no surprises here, I don't think. I was aware of Kickstarter for a long time before I ended up actually backing anything. I didn't feel inclined to get into the whole Kickstarter, but when Stephanie Burrows and Adam Ohlers released their Oak, Ash and Thorn, I could not resist. I saw the pictures of this deck on Instagram, I believe, or was it maybe through Facebook or something like that, and it was like all my dreams had come true in a deck. I absolutely fell head over heels for this artwork, and I could not pass it up. I just could not. So this, the Oak, Ash and Thorn, was my very first Kickstarter deck, and I have not really. I've backed quite a few since then, but not too many, because honestly it's very expensive to back anything from Kickstarter when you live in a remote little country like Finland. So yeah, I back very sparingly, and only when it's when it's a deck that I really just must have as a Kickstarter, or if it's a Kickstarter that I am certain won't be available after the fact, after the Kickstarter has gone out. So yeah, but yeah, Oak, Ash and Thorn, scrumptious, and I am honestly so thrilled about their Oracle deck, the Thistledown, that's coming out. Pre-orders are starting next month, and I'm just like, oh, I can't wait. It looks like such a gorgeous deck, and I can't wait for their new tarot deck that they're working on called the Heartwood Tarot. It's just so good, so good, so good. I love that their decks so much. All right, so the next prompt is first tarot tuber. Well, I honestly can't remember if it was Lisa Papes or Dawn Michelle that I found first in tarot tube world, or actually maybe it was Kelly from The Truth and Story. One of those three, and I cannot remember who I saw first. It all kind of became a blur. Once I found out that there was a thing like tarot tube, I just started watching everything at once, and it just all kind of got jumbled in, so it feels like it was kind of a blur of all kinds of tarot tubers for a while there in the beginning, and I suspect that I probably watched all three of them regularly at the same time in the beginning. So those three. But yeah. First tarot book. Well, this book is the little book that my grandma bought me at the same time as she bought me the Londa Tarot. And it's a little tarot book in Swedish called Lilla Tarotboken by Ylva Trollsveden. And, you know, it's a tiny, tiny little, it's kind of like the equivalent of a little white book. The mages have this like little write up on one page, and then the minors only has like this little for each. It's what I started out with. I haven't really read it in ages. It's got a few spreads and such, but you know, it's kind of like a tiny little reference book, nothing special. But it was what I needed as a little teen. Yeah, it did its thing. The first book I wanted to include that I actually bought for myself later on when I started studying tarot a bit more seriously as a grown-up is the Everyday Tarot by Gail Fairfield. Now, I can't review this book because I've read about half of it and then I fell out. I don't know, maybe it was too dry, maybe I wasn't in the right mindset when I first got it. I've been exploring, I feel like I bought a bunch of books because I felt like it was the thing I needed to do. But I ended up learning more intuitively more than anything else, and from the guidebooks that comes with tarot decks. You know, I've read more of them than I've read like general tarot books. But I feel like this is quite a, I think this is quite a good book. So I feel like I should, this is the word again. I could come back to this book and give it another chance. I think that would be a good thing to do, perhaps. First tarot podcast. Now this one I know is Tarot Bites. I think with Teresa Reed. Am I remembering this wrongly? I can't remember now. I think it's Teresa Reed who does Tarot Bites. And that's the one I started out with. I didn't continue listening to that one. I know she's doing some like longer content videos, or sorry, podcasts now. And I need to listen to some of those. I'm really intrigued. But I know that the first tarot podcast I started listening to is the Little Tarot Bites, which was like 7 or 8 minutes long episodes about just one card. And I really liked them because they were really easy to just listen to, 1 or 2 on my way to work. The tarot podcast that I'm listening to most at the moment actually is Tarot Diagnosis. Really love that show. Really lovely way to approach the cards from a different perspective that I really appreciate. First tarot course. I have not ever gone or participated in a tarot course. Well, I say that, but the only thing that I have participated in that was some similar is the Tarot with Training Wheels course by Lisa Pepes on her channel, which I thought was a really lovely way of just going through the cards one more time, yet again, and yeah, breaking it down a little bit. I always love seeing other people's keywords for the cards and hearing their perspective on things. And I think that was it's always useful to find another way of seeing a card, you know. So but that's the only one. Yeah, that's the only one that I've actually watched from the start to the beginning, and then kind of participated in the little like homework that you got through that course. All right, so the first major tarot teaching you relearned in a way that better suited you. Well, see, that's a difficult one because I don't look at it as relearning. I think of it as adding to the knowledge of that card. I feel like each and every card has a multitude of meanings, and the fun thing with tarot is that as you progress and as you read more and more tarot through the years, each and every card will show you all of their different sides depending on what question, situation, what deck you're using. And I feel like I haven't relearned any card. I've just added to the wisdom of the meanings that can pertain to each and every card. If you understand what I'm trying to say, I feel a little bit like I'm just wafting here, but waffling, not wafting, waffling. I'm waffling around, and but yes, that's I think that's what I want to try and get across. With that said, though, I think that the first card that happened, I can't remember what card that happened to first, because I've just always kind of had that approach, I think, where I've just been open to the fact that there is just not one meaning for each card. There's just meanings that you haven't discovered or perceived yet. Yeah, but I think that maybe one of the first that I kind of had that kind of aha moment with could have been the Four of Pentacles, maybe. Like reading it not only as hoarding or being materialistic, and instead looking at it from the point of view of stability and security and yeah, something like that. Next prompt is, hang on. The next prompt is the first tarot deck you rehomed. Now I'm really bad at rehoming decks. I've done a couple of trades, and one of them was the Mesquite Tarot. But actually, I think the first one I ever rehomed, I don't know if it counts, because I actually had 2 copies of this deck, quite accidentally. I was sent a replacement copy because the first copy had a few issues with it. And I had 2 copies of the Spacious Tarot. And then I found a person on Facebook who wanted to trade the Spacious Tarot with me. And I still can't believe to this day that this happened. I traded the Spacious Tarot for the Majestic Earth Tarot. And oh, it was just like one of those lucky things. And I feel so grateful to this day that I have the Majestic Earth Tarot in my collection. It's such a beautiful deck. However, a bit hyped, to be honest. It's beautiful, but it's also a curated art deck, which I feel like it's a bit hyped and a bit overpriced for what it is, to be honest. And I also think that it shouldn't be so limited in amounts. But anyway, all of that aside, I still feel lucky that I have that deck because it's beautiful, and I still have a Spacious Tarot, so win-win. Yes, and then the first tarot deck that touched you emotionally. Now this one was difficult. This one is difficult to answer because I want to say all of my tarot decks have touched me emotionally. But if I'm going to be really succinct about it, I could narrow it down to 3. All right, the first one I'm going to show you is the Lord of the Rings Tarot by Fix Art on Etsy. This deck is special for several reasons. One, it was a gift from my lovely partner, and kind of like him embracing 2 of my loves in life, which is Lord of the Rings and tarot. And this deck touched me emotionally, partly because he showed that he embraced me and these loves in my life that he might not always agree with. He was a little bit wary when I told him that, when he found out about my tarot habits. So that for him to actually find this deck on Etsy and buy it for me meant so much to me. Secondly, it's Lord of the Rings. It's tarot. It's both at once. And the meanings in the cards, the choices that the person has made for the cards are so good. Not all of them are exactly what I would have chosen, but loads of them are, and some of them are really, really good. And yeah, it brings so much to a reading for me when I can marry the meaning of the tarot card with the specific scene in the films or the books, So yeah, Lord of the Rings Tarot by Fix Art on Etsy. Let me see if it actually says on the little, because it comes in this little. I need to make a bag for this, but I still haven't. And it comes with just this little printout with the meanings, but it doesn't say. The creator's name doesn't come up here anywhere. So yeah. I've also done a long walkthrough of this deck. One short and one long walkthrough on my channel. The next deck I'm going to show you is probably not going to surprise anyone who's watched my channel before, and that is the Tarot of the Enchanted Forest by Linnea Witherstone and Marilla Allwood. This deck and I have gone through a deep dive series here on the channel. It makes me emotional every time I hold this deck. It brings me back to childhood fantasies and playing in the woods as a kid, and all the fantastic imagined adventures that I had in there playing in the forest. And yeah, this deck is something special to me, and it's also the very first deck that I decided to deep dive here on the channel, so it's going to always have a very special place in my heart. And this one has definitely touched me emotionally in oh so many ways. The next deck I'm going to show you very briefly is an out of print deck, and it's actually my very first out of print deck, so we could almost say that it's its own prompt, an added prompt to this VR, and that is the Victorian Fairy Tarot, also by Linnea Witherstone, but with the artist called Gary Lippincott. And I actually found out that this is not going to be out of print much longer. It's coming back into print. Woo! So I'm gonna get an extra copy of this when it comes back out, because this copy is very special to me. First edition Victorian Fairy Tarot. Gorgeous deck, and it's like it was the first out of print deck I bought, and it was such a success. It came in brilliant condition, smells amazing. I have to sniff it every time I hold it, and it's got such a good vibe to it. Like the energy of it is just something else. I adore this deck, and I've had so many emotional readings with it. I'm so thrilled that it's coming back into print, so that all the lovely people who want to have this deck can get their hands on it. I am so thrilled, honestly. I have no dates. I just heard this through the Facebook grapevine, so I hope it's happening and it's not just a rumor, but they said that Linnea herself had said it. So I am inclined to believe them. So the last prompt is the first tarot inspired artwork that you made. Wow. Well, the very first one that I made must have been in my teens, but I've no idea where that could be. Probably in some boxes at my dad's place or something. So the very first one that I've made that I can recall and that I have access to actually show you is probably yeah, it's probably one of these that I've shown you on my channel before. But I will show you the first one of those. But I can't remember now if it was the Hermit or the High Priestess that I did first. I'll show you both because I can't remember which one came first. So this is the High Priestess, which it was so much fun to make this one. I love it. And this one is the one that inspired me to continue, I think, doing. Yeah, I think the High Priestess came first. So I've wanted to do an animal oracle for a long time, but I started doing that with stock images, and it kind of got put on ice because I have a handful of projects going on at the moment. Then I pick one up and then I get tired of it, so I pick another one up and then I work on that until I get tired of that. So I just kind of jump from project to project at the moment until I find a concept that I really like that I could stick with and that I will finish, because I don't know if all of these will be finished. So, but the High Priestess, it started out with me getting my iPad and wanting to learn how to draw in Procreate, and I just started watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and I started buying some brushes and stuff for Procreate, and then I've just been fiddling around on Procreate, having a lot of fun. And then I started doing these pet portraits for some friends and family, like with these watercolor brushes that I bought for Procreate. And then suddenly I just felt like, hey, let's do a tarot card, why not? And then I did the High Priestess, I think. And then since I promised I would also show the Hermit, here's the Hermit. So then after that I made the Hermit, and since then I've made maybe 6 or 7 cards. And yeah, I'm slowly building on that, and if I ever reach all 78 cards, then, you know, then I have a tarot deck. But if not, it's just a fun pastime, creative outlet that I'm really enjoying at the moment. So yeah, that was that. That was all the prompts. Thank you so much to Logan for creating this tarot tag, and I look forward to doing some more VRs to your lovely tags. Thank you all of you who stopped by to listen to my rambles for a little bit. I hope that you all are well, and yeah, please take care of yourselves and be well, my friends, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!